All right,
Ahem.
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Neil decided to show up. So we're live once again for our second day after show of summer tour. We're joined by Leighton today to recap last night in San Francisco. How are you both doing?
Well, first of all, sorry to cut you off, Leighton. I want to say something about this. We are like clockwork on this podcast. Occasionally there are technical difficulties, and not calling out any other Osiris pods, but we've got HF pod beat by a mile. So I am calling out HF pod
I
right
was going
now.
to say you are calling out other Osiris pods.
Yeah, I do love them though. They're all fantastic people,
Yes.
and I love them dearly. Leighton, thank you once again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to take some time to recap some Goose before get into the thick of my summer internship next week. So happy to be here.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, we got another show to talk about last night. Very different than Tuesday night. I think in a lot of ways. Yeah. I don't know, Neil. Maybe it's just unprofessionalism.
I am ready for this. I'm ready for this.
Well,
Hey,
yeah. So really interesting show last night, contrasting with Tuesday night. Just off the bat, definitely Tuesday night was my favorite of the two shows. I think that's pretty plain in terms of just jamming and setlist construction. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I think we got more of a 2024 Goose show last night. It felt like. Yes. Shout out to friend of the pod, Garrett, for lending me this lovely desk to do the pod at today. I'm in Seattle currently. All right. Well, does anyone have any other kind of going all over the place for the intro here today? Do either of you guys have any big picture thoughts on the show before we get into the set list?
I kind of have a hot take.
Ooh.
I mean, we're going to start hot take. I actually like this approach. This could be good.
I think we're going to start off hot take. I wrote this down. Word of the night was playful. And I know I listened to it and I was like, while I was listening last night, I was like, Ryan's not going to like this. I just know it. It's going to be too run of the mill. But the energy was so upbeat, from the get-go. And honestly, like the songs that they were playing, it was a faster tempo than they've been playing, which I really liked. And the fact that they were the order of the set list, which obviously we'll get into, but they were mixing it up and keeping us on our toes. And honestly, I like it. They seemed a lot more energized by it for it. And or because they did it that way. And I just thought it was a little bit more engaging and fun. And I think if they want to do this every now and again to mix it up, by all means, because I don't want every single show to be totally jammed out, because then they're going to become complacent. No, but then they're going to become complacent and they're going to start to do the same things. But I think it's good for them to kind of just get on stage, do whatever the hell they want and go for it. And I think, last comment, I think that this was the perfect show that I would bring one of my friends to who doesn't like Goose. Or who doesn't really get into the jam scene. I think this is a perfect show because they have the balance of jamming with Salt and the Dustin, but then they hit all a bunch of the staples that would get people dancing. Honestly, it looked like a dance party. That's what it looked like to me, and I don't hate it. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, especially late set 2 got into that dance party with the Wisteria Echo segment. I mean, I agree. Yeah, you have more of that playful energy than you had on Tuesday. I think Tuesday they put their heads down and they were like, "We're gonna do some shit." As Peter said on that behind the scenes footage, we're fucking shit up. That's what they were doing. That's what they were doing on Tuesday. And yeah, last night, I mean, you get more of just what you'd expect from Goose. The jamming wasn't as crazy as we saw on Tuesday. They did a lot of those, as you mentioned, late, the high energy peaks. At times, and I guess, yeah, that's a lot of fans really like that. And a lot of more casual fans who aren't mentally deranged like I am.
Whose job isn't to listen to music.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. So I see it from that perspective. I guess that makes sense. But I still obviously like Tuesday better. Neil, you got the big picture thoughts?
Can I do the thing that I do and be the middle ground here?
That is the thing that you do.
That is what I do. Whether it doesn't matter if it's you and Jive, it's now you and Leighton. I think the middle ground that I see here is that this is a solid, well put together show. we complain a lot about construction of shows. I am not upset about how this show was constructed. Could I have gone a little bit deeper in Wisteria than, kind of the surface level jam out of another song kind of vibe? Sure. I would have really liked to have seen that. But I'm also not complaining about a very efficient 12-minute jam that actually a lot of people are going to continue to talk about, a very efficient 16-minute jam that is pretty hot, and then inclusion of a new song that's pretty dope. I mean, there's good stuff happening all over this show. And then you get the fun second half of the show. And I have no problem with that. I had no problem with it at Goosemas. They continue to try out these things. You think about Night 2 in Mexico, similar kind of vibe. And in a way, I see this show as an extension of the vibe of Mexico. So it's appropriate that we have Leighton here to talk about the show.
There we go. That's actually
how do you like that segue?
There you go. That was good. I mean, good point from Matt Ross from our very critical perspective. They've only gagged one set in 2025, and he's actually incorrect here. It's Toronto 1, set 2. I would say that's the only kind of miss. If you think about it, that's really the only set of the year where you were kind of wincing in the second half every time they went into a new song. Which for those who forgot, that was the run of All I Need, Wisteria, Pancakes ending, and then the Thatch encore, which was burning the big jam vehicles on very short renditions. We don't need to relive that traumatic experience for me right now, but let's dive into last night's show. Yes. Go through the set list. So we are back, 3-pack of openers. Yes, indeed. So Ready, Draconian Meter Maid, and Mr. Action to get things started. I love a So Ready opener. I think this is probably my favorite slot for this song. Sets the tone, gets the energy going. Meter Maid, we keep talking about every Meter Maid is just this beautiful buttery bliss jam. And they seem to really coalesce on this free-flowing space, specifically in this song. And they have since last September. They've kind of been building into this kind of flowy major key jam in every Meter Maid. And, this is, again, another 13-minute or so version, very, very solid, and just an excellent listen. And, again, people love that shit. It's fantastic.
Because it sounds good.
Yeah, and you know what else people love? The Mr. Action guitar solo. This is a great version. I like a Mr. Action early in the first set. So no real complaints about this 3-pack.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you really encapsulated it all. The Mr. Action, I thought, was really good. I love that guitar solo. Sometimes it's just so crystal clear. You're like, wow. Yeah, I don't really have as much to say on these three just because it is the kind of standard 3-pack. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I think I will say this about the set. The Meter Maid is quite good. I like the places that they're getting to in Meter Maid. I long for maybe a mix-in of the Meter Maid that they did in Milwaukee, which is a very different vibe than this one and the last one. So if they can kind of continue to mix those two things, those two styles of jams in, great. I don't want it to be solely just okay, we're going to get a beautiful Bliss segment here. We already have a tune like that in Lead the Way where you kind of get this this kind of stretched out Bliss segment. But I like where they get to inside of 12 minutes there. That part excites me. And that feels like a continuation. When we're going to keep hammering on this theme of a continuation of what happened in February. This feels like that to me. In a show that ultimately overall doesn't feel like February felt. Mm-hmm. Feels more like Mexico than February. But yeah, and I will agree with you about Mr. Action. It struck me listening to this that Mr. Action does kind of what Bob Don did early for me when Bob Don was kind of first around.
When it was faster.
Yeah. And, I think back to the version that they played in Frederick after the rain out, and Rick just kind of he fights the song, he just beats it up and just plays this solo because he's just pissed because they're not going to be able to play the show. And that solo vibe kind of shows up in this solo. And I love that shit. I love it when he plays the guitar
for the record,
with passion.
Rick was not angry last night. I did not,
he seemed to be having a great time.
Yeah,
last night he was there to party. Himself. He did announce that from the stage.
Yeah, he said it on the mic. So
yeah, he did in fact say that.
He did. So, I didn't catch that.
He did. He said, "Hey, calm down. You guys need to chill out. We're trying to party up here."
Yeah.
That came off of the stage. So, and then there was like this really, if you watch the video, an excellent segment of where he's like laughing at himself, which he almost never does on stage, and he takes a step back. And this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Leighton, because this is a really interesting part of the show, because this is not a thing that typically happens. He has no idea what the fuck is going on at this point. And he looks up at Peter.
Yeah, watching them
and he looks
scramble
up
was great.
Yeah, so he had no idea what song they were playing.
Really?
Yes, and so
like right. I didn't catch on to this. When did that?
I forget exactly where this is in the show, but Leighton, you know what I'm talking about. I think if you watch the stream at home, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it like a lot of it happened like before Torero. I think that's what it was.
Maybe that sounds
because
right
they were like, when they were, we're gonna play the new one. Like we've decided. Like they did not know what they were doing, and he was like, sometimes we just come up here and we just don't have a plan.
I thought you meant in the middle of a jam.
No. This is right before our song.
Also, an interesting thing while we're talking about that, we're going to get to it, but the written set list had Salt, Turn Clouds, Torero to close the first set. So I don't know what the confusion was.
Yeah, so he's looking at Peter, and Peter just starts playing the song, and he's like, okay. And then just starts playing.
Like, maybe that was before Novel. I think that might have been before.
Oh, it was Novel. That's exactly what it was.
That's what it was.
Peter started doing that. All right. Well, that's good because now we're going to talk about Novel and Salt. I think Novel.
We're just crushing them.
We're on fire today. Real smooth, linear. Novel's good. Love this song. I felt as though at that point it's like, all right, like we need a little bit of improv here. And luckily we get that with Salt. Really, really happy about this placement because I love this song as a 5-minute set closer. We've seen a lot in Mexico, but also this song is destined to be a gigantic jam vehicle. I think last night, I'm not going to say it's the best one yet because I need to AB it against Utah, but it's pretty fucking awesome. It's only 15 minutes, but, as we've been saying since last fall, 15-minute jams cannot be overlooked. This one is on the playlist. And I love the way that it starts. It's very clear from the outset that they have intention. They're going to jam some shit. And I love the momentum behind this jam, thanks to Cotter. I think there's a very different kind of improv that develops in this kind of wide open, really fast groove versus something like the Dustin, which is more of like a laid back or like a funk thing. And I think it's more unique for them to be playing at this speed throughout the whole jam. But you get that kind of early on Peter textural, kind of uplifting thing. And then Peter hits the piano and just drives them right into that like aggressive darkness. And then they get back into Salt at the end. But I'm a huge fan of this jam. And this one had the crowd in a frenzy, by the end. I think the crowd last night was a lot more energetic than Tuesday's. Which was great. It definitely seemed in the balcony there were a lot more people standing up. A little bit of a younger crowd last night too. I said yesterday it's like the demographic was like mostly old deadheads on Tuesday. It seemed as though there were a lot more younger people at the show last night who were raging more. So that was cool. Neil, what do you think of this Salt?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add than you. I think I need to go back and listen to it. I think when we are talking about just straight up improv, this is probably the best example from this show. Mm-hmm. And they kind of do that thing, which, we call it darkness now, but more than anything, there's emphasis on beats with different instruments. And I think it creates this kind of feeling of like here's a sound, here's a sound, here's a sound, here's a sound. And it's dissonant in a way, but still on beat. It's what I like about the Westville Rockdale, where it just all just comes together in such a beautiful way. And in certain spots, this is less cohesive than that, but in a similar vibe, not because it's dark and not because it's weird or angular or whatever, but because of kind of the beats are all, the notes are all like not connected and then somewhat become connected at some point. And I just think that's a really neat jamming style. It's cool to listen to. It's not super danceable. I'll say that.
That's okay.
But it's cool stuff. Yeah. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, before I get into the Salt, I have a question. So on the stream, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the stream, but the stream quality these past two shows has been incredible. Like the sound has just been impeccable. I mean, Rick's voice sounded so good during Novel. I didn't think that it sounded as good last time that they played it, personally. But when they were singing So Ready, because I noticed this in Mexico, Rick was using his like vocal effect tools a lot more in Mexico than you would hear on the stream. Was Rick doing that at all during those first segue of songs? I'm sure during So Ready, but
I don't remember specifically. It did pop up a few times last night where it was like very heavy, delay or whatever. And yeah, I think it's interesting how that's in the room, but it doesn't show up on tape.
Yeah. Because it is a cool element of just like the appeal of being there in person. So I was just curious, but his voice sounded so good on Novel last night. That kind of pulled me in a little bit more. And then with that salt, this is the salt that I've been wanting. It has been so long since we had like the Utah salt. Like, oh my goodness. I was watching it and I'm starting to sweat thinking about it. Chills. I mean, I'm a big salt advocate. And this was exactly what I wanted. It was just, it was beautiful. This is the jam and proof that it is like a true vehicle for going to all these sorts of different places to just be one beautiful song. It was beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes, agreed.
And ends hot too. I think that's like the best part about it is that, it's just pure fire at the end. And then, kind of goes like right into the cool down there, which is neat.
There we go. People love salt.
People love
that shit. People love that shit. That's the theme these
days.
Bit. People love that shit. Next up, so yeah, we have that moment of indecision before Turn Clouds. It looks like, looking at the clock, Peter picked up his guitar. And so I think they were gonna be like, let's just do Torero. And then they started Turn Clouds, and I was standing with a friend of the pod, Brad Solari, at the time. And we were like, oh, I guess they're gonna close the set with Turn Clouds. It was already almost 9:00. And so with curfew and stuff, we figured they'd want to wrap up. But then they did Turn Clouds and Torero, which felt a little bit unnecessary just given the time constraints. And I think that personally, I may get hate for this, and Haps already told me that my opinion is wrong about this. But
I expect nothing else.
Yes. But I did not like the Turn Clouds placement. It's a good song. I'm not the hugest fan of it. Sorry, Josh. But normally it's like, all right, they're going to play it in the first set, but the crowd was so amped after the end of Salt. And I think if you put Torero there, you carry the energy a little more, but Turn Clouds kind of sucked the energy out of the room a little bit. And it ended up, it came back, big guitar solo at the end. But I think you lost a little bit of the momentum and you took a little bit of time that could have gone into the second set. But happy to see Torero pop back up again. Nothing crazy improvisationally here. Peter's playing some of the parts on the organ now instead of guitar. It's interesting.
More guitar.
The jam's on the guitar though, so that's it.
It doesn't matter. Just more guitar. 2025 is the year of Peter on guitar. We don't need to be adding keyboard parts that were once guitar parts. It's got to be the other way around. Yeah.
I will say, I feel like they took Turn Clouds as an opportunity to cool down before Torero, but because the energy was so high, that first set was the whole time I was just thinking like they're playing at a faster tempo, like they're playing a little bit more upbeat with more energy. I feel like that was their cool down. Maybe not the most loved decision by the crowd, but still, I think it was a good way for them to cool down and like by playing something more familiar and then get into Torero where they can do something new. But I do wish that they would have allowed more time for the second set or for Torero to really get in a deep place. So
there we go. Listen, Josh, Turn Clouds should be stretched out into a set 2 vehicle. If they want to start jamming out Turn Clouds, I'm all for it. I will be on board. Absolutely. Neil might not even go to the bathroom if that happens.
True. No, I would still go. I would be back in time for the jam. That's the race. But yeah.
All right.
Well, before we move on from Torero, I just want to say this one thing, and I'm going to probably repeat myself over and over again every time they play it. And it does seem like the new stuff is going to be on heavy rotation even that. And I had wondered about this one because it was one of those songs where it's like, is this
Came
going to
out
be
of
one that
nowhere.
they play and then they don't play again forever? Like they did it with Not Alone. They certainly did it with How It Ends.
Salt.
But Salt, SLT, STL, Zalt, whatever it was at the time, and then whatever it changed to, whatever. So, but you know what I'm saying. So I was wondering that about this. But the cool part about this tune is that it just begs to be jammed out. It begs to be taken deep. Has yet to really do that. But I'm stoked about it. I'm stoked about it as a tune. And twin lead stuff is just fun. It might get old, but right now I like it.
I don't know. We'll see. And it's a good point about them playing the new songs. These two nights had so many songs debuted in 2024 or 2025. And I think that, first of all, that speaks to the strength of the material. All of these songs feel like they're essential parts of the Goose canon at this point. Like Iguana Song, Dustin Hoffman, like those songs feel like they've been around and they like belong as part of a show. Like you're not getting people. There are some bands where they play a new song, people like don't really know it, or it doesn't hit the same way as some of the classics. But like you have stuff like that, Salt, Big Modern, like all these songs, Meter Maid, even all these songs that are now firmly ingrained in the Goose catalog and are in regular rotation. And so shout out to Goose for writing awesome songs all the time.
Yeah, speaking of new songs, I remember it's still a new song, Free by the band Fish, when they introduced that in 1995, and they played it like every fourth show. And that one was like an old shoe. You put it on and it was just super comfortable right away. I remember it clear as day. And very similar vibe right now with something like Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
Free is still a new song, by the way. Just like Limbo.
Hey, thank you, Neil. We get it. You're old. All right, let's move on to set 2 here. I think a quick set break vibe check. Eye on the clock. That was the thing for me. I was like, we're gonna get, a kind of a messy end of the second set because of the way that the first set was time managed. They took a full 30 minutes for set break again. So I think they came on stage around 9:40.
That made me think that they were gonna do one of the sets where they play 3 songs or 4 songs max. Honestly, I was kind of anticipating that since they took such a long set break, but they didn't.
That would have been good. Well, they come out for the second set, and Rick forgot something backstage. Not entirely sure what it was, but they all walked out. Rick goes, "Hang on, I forgot something," and runs backstage. And then the rest of the band starts playing the Dr. Darkness intro. And Rick came back out, and it didn't look like he had grabbed anything. So I wonder what
he probably had
to pee.
Yeah. And Sam was probably like, "I told you."
Oh yeah. I'm just imagining the look on her face when he ran backstage again.
I can actually clearly envision the look on her face.
Yeah.
When he did that. Kidding me?
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the third time Dr. Darkness has ever opened the second set. The first one being its debut, 1:26:22, and the second one being Cincy New Year's, 12:31:22.
That's
I don't really like it in this slot. I gotta say, I'm a big proponent of short song, big jam to open the second set. But I think that short song needs to be a little more energetic. Like Hot Love Dustin, I'm into, to kick off set 2. But I feel like Dr. Darkness is not like the right pick here to start off the second set, especially with the time constraints that are coming in. You're burning 7 minutes on Dr. Darkness.
I like that they're kind of mixing it up though, because honestly, I'm kind of tired of Hot Love in the first set or in the first slot for either set.
Sure.
Like I needed a little bit of a mix up, and when they started kind of dark, I was like, okay, they started with Darkness, they're going to get into something here, and then they go into Dustin and just shred.
Neil, you got thoughts on Darkness in this slot?
I do. Tour is long. We listen to a lot of these shows. When they do something that's out of the ordinary, I like it. And they're going to play Dr. Darkness. They will play that song. And over the course of this summer, probably another 3 times, I think is a safe guess.
Low
estimate. And man, I don't necessarily hate it here. I actually kind of like, the way that Darkness starts with all the weirdness and everything. And it was especially weird this time. Peter had a couple tricks up his sleeve where I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like I had my headphones, and when I listened to it, I was
Agreed.
like, oh boy. Some people might have had a really bad night with one of those ones where it's just, depending on where they were at. But yeah, don't mind it in that spot. And as long as you kind of keep it short and shift gears right away to what the second set needs to be, I'm down with it. And it gets away from the formula of just coming out there and doing a 20-minute number every single time. And the shows shouldn't all feel the same.
Agreed.
And like they tend to, and like that Goose has a tendency to do that, where everything is just like, this is the spot for this, and this is the spot for that, and this one belongs here. And for the longest time, Fantasy Goose was really easy because you could just kind of say like, well, today's the day that So Ready closes the first set, so that kind of stuff is not happening right now. And that's good to me. And is Dr. Darkness one of their stronger songs? No, bottom third. Totally agree with you on that front. But I like the fact that it was a different approach to this.
Leighton does not agree. Let's talk about this, Dustin. Finally, and finally in its second performance in front of an audience. But so happy when they went into the Dustin here. You knew that it was going to be big. And after hearing the Chateau arrangement, where they did the jam properly, unlike the debut in Mexico. Super exciting. Yes, dude. Song of the summer, Dustin Hoffman.
It's true.
This is it. But this jam, not the deepest jam, but I really, really love it. Again, people love this shit. You get super extended funk for the first half of the jam. We kind of got that into in the Chateau version. Dylan, no, I did not catch Trevor playing a new bass line during the Dustin Hoffman verses. You have a way better ear than I do about music, and you catch on to things like that. But now I'm going to go and compare.
Great.
I'm impressed that you noticed that.
In my notes, I literally just have fire in all caps. It was so good. And also, okay, maybe this is just me, but I think it's so fun when, I don't know what reverb or whatever Peter was playing before the Bing Bong. I thought that was hilarious.
That's Cotter.
Right after that was Cotter?
Yeah, it's a sample.
Okay. I thought it was hilarious. I'm here for that. Like if they are in a jam and suddenly you hear a Bing Bong. I mean, luckily it wasn't too spread out. Like it was just far enough from the lyrics. I thought it was fun and engaging. And the transition into Big Modern was incredible. Incredible.
It was.
Guess who was excited when that started happening? Might surprise you to figure that out. But wait, I don't want to skip over the Dustin Jam. I love that kind of minimalist synth patch that Peter was using. The Roland Juno is doing a lot these past few shows, which is that the new one that's on top of the clav. He's really kind of exploring what it can do, and I love the way that he went from that like very percussive, like in the pocket jam, and then when Cotter and then Rick started kind of bringing it into the major key space. Peter just like kind of turned a few knobs and it became just this like beautiful synth pad. And then the stuff he was doing on the OB6 after that. So he sets this pad up and then starts doing some lead stuff on the OB6 and Vintage Vibe, as they develop this Bliss theme. Kind of reminded me a lot of the Greek Drip in a way, just that kind of like winding lead synth as they're building this major key thing, just for a moment in that jam. And then just beautiful sustained Rick peak. Just incredibly enjoyable jam.
I mean, that's what Dustin is, right? It's a little too can't miss for me right now. I don't know how else to describe it. It's almost like SOS when they started playing SOS again after a long break. It hits the same way for me. There's a lot of what you expect, although you do get a little bit more of a jam. So like dude asked, like, do you think it's going to jam every time, or do you think it's going to jam some of the time? I don't compare it to Born. I compare it more to SOS, where there is a guaranteed built-in little bit of jam there, but it's not straying too far from home base. And my hope is that it does stray from home base a little bit at some point, because like you were just pointing out, Ryan, it does two different things incredibly well. There is kind of this very chill, like blissy space that is like a little yacht rocky, which everything that's new is a little yacht rocky in one way, shape, or form. And then there's the funk piece, and they can take that funk piece in a different direction. this last version, we heard kind of the slow funk. And in Mexico, it was significantly faster, at least to my ear. So that can go two different ways. So it can do a little bit of what the slower funk Arcadias have been doing, or the sped up Earthling or Alien, which is what I thought of when I heard it in Mexico. So there's three different distinct approaches to jamming that can come out of the song. Three different places they can take it, whatever they're feeling like at the particular moment. And the transition between those styles is so simple because of the way they've constructed the song. But on that note, this is the kind of song that Mark Brownstein thinks that younger bands shouldn't write, because this one's going to be a pain in the ass to remember when it's not in heavy rotation. But yeah, so
Dustin is?
Yeah, like I feel like it's just, there's so many different things happening in this song that you got to just remember how to do the transitions.
I think Torero is going to be that song.
Well, similarly, yeah, Torero. They're writing hard songs right now. This is a good thing for us.
Yeah.
Good thing for us, bad thing for 50-year-old Rick and Peter.
Yeah. Yes. And I mentioned yesterday, that like I didn't think they needed to bring Big Modern back around, but I love the way that they did it. I thought they found it in a pretty fluid way. It didn't feel super forced. And I actually, when they first hit the changes, I was like, are they really doing it? Like, is this happening?
It's sick.
And then they did, and it was great.
What were Rick and Trevor saying into the mic? Was it Rick and Trevor at the end of the Big Modern?
Face?
They didn't do the face thing.
They didn't do it. I don't know. Did they say something at the end of Big Modern?
It was like after the song ended, they were saying something into the mic, and I was like playing it over on the video. I was like, what are they saying? They were just going back and
I did
forth.
notice that. Yeah, I couldn't pick it up.
Okay.
It's sometimes it's really hard to hear banter when you're in the room sometimes.
I never hear banter in the room, so it's not surprising.
Which is funny because like the vocals come through so clearly, but as soon as they're just like talking, it's like inaudible. I don't know. Might go back and check that out later. But yeah, Big Modern ending, and then you get Wisteria, Echo, and Green River ending, which I kind of didn't even think about that had been unfinished on Tuesday. This Wisteria is very unique. This is Rick uses the talk back here to kind of cue that, like, kind of tells them to speed up. And I was really worried that he was telling them to like do a segue.
Well, he kind of did do a segue, Ryan. They started playing an entirely different song, but go ahead.
Sure. I mean, that's more of like a forced jam idea or a transition rather than going into a new song. It's still Wisteria. Yep. And then, Peter kind of loops the guitar kind of feedback sound that he had going, and then was just like being full mad scientist. Very dancey jam, very gritty dancey jam. And I kind of like the space that they found here. Felt different than some of the other arpeggiator jams, because I think Peter was kind of actively molding the sound for a lot longer than he usually does. I think usually he sets the arp, hits go, and then leaves it for 10 minutes while they do stuff over top of it. But here it felt like he was shaping it. He went back to playing guitar for a little while. This is a cool space. Do I wish they had gone somewhere after instead of playing Echo? Absolutely. But people were going nuts for this Echo peak. And I think it's kind of in that role right now where it just goes huge peak and very fiery Rick jam. And then Green River. They didn't finish Echo. So, the only hanging loose end, if you will.
First of all, I saw that they played Wisteria because it was too late for me. I fell asleep. And I was kicking myself. I was like, I think that they're just trying to prevent me from ever seeing Wisteria. I still have yet to see it live.
Really?
And I feel like it's not in the rotation as much nearly as it was. So I know that next weekend in Fiddlers, I'm not going to get it, which was a little bit sad. But when Neil texted, he was like, oh, do y'all hear like the Annie T's, the Smooth Criminal T's? I was like, no, I had it in my notes. I was so ready to bring it up because I heard it on the spot.
All yours.
I heard it on the spot, and I was like, I heard like the teasings of it, and I was like, let's see how this carries out. And then it goes into this techno, like dark, weird, intense, almost like alien kind of like jam for a second, and it got really dark, and then they pick it back up and go into Echo. I really liked it. I thought it was, and like you said, Ryan, I think that the way that Peter kind of molded that arrangement was great. I loved it.
Yeah. So this Wisteria leaves you wanting for more because Wisteria historically goes to total outer space, right? And this one doesn't do that, and it hasn't done it in forever. I can't remember actually the last truly great Wisteria. We going all the way back to
Portland.
Fiddlers for that?
Portland.
Oh, Portland, of course. So
And
right.
Salt Shed was very good, but Portland is the last great
Yeah.
Wisteria.
Last pretty great one. So in any case, I understand when people listen to this and they say 15 minutes of Wisteria, I've been robbed, especially if you're at the show. You want the bigger jam. I mean, you want that when you hear Wisteria, you want it when you hear All I Need, you want it when you hear Madhavan. In any case, you don't get that in this one, but you do get a sick Michael Jackson jam for a bit. And that is a hell of a dance party. And then you get, all the kind of bits that you're used to in a much smaller sample size with Wisteria here. And I think this is like a hot 15 minutes of a show. And then you kind of finish out with the Green River. I mean, dude, who doesn't love Credence? Oh, and before you finish out, sorry, I skipped over the echo. You know that I love the hot, short echoes. They don't all need to be, super well established jam kind of things. Like if Rick wants to just show up and rip, which he can do in this song, which I think, was originally what this song was kind of to a degree or another, that's great because it fits. He knows how to do it. It always works. It doesn't miss when they play it in this style. Mm-hmm. And it's a great spot for it. So you go, Michael Jackson, like Echo Over Rose, hot, Green River ending. That's not bad. Small snippets of music at the end there. I think that is a fun way to end a show. Full stop.
Yeah. I mean, and Arcadia is always a great encore, but very sad that they only had 12 minutes for it, because they started to develop this really cool theme that they didn't have time to keep going off of. Just Peter doing these synth chords and kind of going in this major key direction. And I wish they had more time to do that. The year started off with two really great Arcadias in Milwaukee and in Toronto. I hope that they place it, earlier in the show so we can get some more, huge Arcadias later in the year. But, again, crowd, people love that shit. Crowd went nuts for the ending of Arcadia, as always. Someone had pointed out to me before this run that the last Bay Area Arcadia was in February 2020 when they were opening for Pigeons. So this was kind of well overdue for this.
Yeah, because they play Arrow and Madhavan and Wisteria every time they're in San Francisco.
Yeah,
I like Arrow especially. They've beaten the hell out of there, and same thing with Thatch. It's shocking they haven't played really any Arcadias, but I guess that makes sense in the end because they've been getting farther and farther away from that song since about 2020. 2021.
Yeah, I also think that like when they pulled out the Arcadia at first, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, like I guess. But then they always prove me wrong because by the time the end of Arcadia comes on and they get to that point where Rick is just strutting and there's high tension and they break down, I'm like, okay, wait, I take that back. So I think they did a good job of kind of squeezing in that encore and making it like starting out mellow and coming back to like really amp up the crowd and leave on like a super high happy note.
Agreed. There are far worse encore songs.
No kidding.
Yes. Show. Like,
no kidding.
So,
better than a Love Light.
It's better than a Love Light. It's better than a Don't Do It. I think it's a great encore. The only problem is if you measure it against 2021 Arcadias, you're like, oh man, I got ripped off. But, it is what it is. I just wanted to highlight this comment really quick because I just want to kind of talk about, like, I made this point already, but at the pace that they're, replaying these new songs, like, do you think Your Direction is a log? And I think right now what's going to happen is they have so much good stuff that's new. You're going to go back to like 2022 where every third show you're getting like a whole bunch of new stuff.
Right.
And that is really actually exciting. I think maybe by the end of the summer, you're going to be like, definitely don't want to hear Your Direction again for a while.
Well, I
but
think
for
we
now,
said that.
I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it because it's so sick. So yes, I do. I think we're going to get every third show songs. And I think Dustin's one of those songs. Iguana's one of those songs. Your Direction. Give It Time. They're going to hammer the hell out of these songs. Thatch they've already beaten to death. And they started late 2022 and they've continued to beat it to death. I don't think that one's going to get that treatment, but those other songs for sure.
And I mean, and there's still so many songs that haven't played yet on this tour. You know, Madhavan, Everything Must Go, All I Need, Tumble, like all these huge jam vehicles that haven't been played yet. Really, most of those since February. I mean, you know, we got Everything Must Go in Mexico, but you know, they also haven't played SOS since February. You know, they haven't played Feel It Now yet on this tour. Like,
when are we gonna get a Yeti?
Yeah,
soon. I would expect a Yeti
the
soon.
only Peter song getting played this tour is Iguana Song. Just so you know, they did cut Butterflies from the first set last night. I saw.
Really?
Yeah.
I have not seen the paper set list.
Let me
Yeah,
dig up the picture here
that.
because it was there was some interesting stuff. Okay, so the written set list for last night: So Ready, Butterflies, Meter Maid, Action, Novel, Salt, Turn Clouds, Torero. Second set's very interesting that they were never going to get through all of. Dustin, Modern, Wisteria, Rosewood, Green River, Echo T, Madhavan, and an Arcadia Encore.
Whoa.
They did not have the time management to pull that off.
That T and Madhavan, though, were either ors if we had time. That they would never. There's no scenario where they would play both of those.
Rosewood would have been great.
Wait, did you say Rosewood?
Yeah,
they were going to do Rosewood, Green River.
Huh. Wow.
And Dr. Darkness was an audible.
Okay, now I'm mad. Okay. Wait, like how do you say we're not going to play Green River, but we're going to throw the Dr. Darkness in there? Sorry, Rosewood. And we're going to throw the Dr. Darkness in there. That feels like a mean audible because, you know,
well,
Rosewood's
Rick
so
likes
sick.
the Dr. Darkness. It just came out in that interview. So maybe that was his way of making a statement, telling the people to get on the train or get off.
Yeah, maybe so.
You never know.
I'm getting off the train.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of last night's show and our first stop of the tour in San Francisco. Leighton, thank you as always for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. We are moving on to Bend, Oregon tomorrow. First outdoor show of the tour. It's an early one, 6:30 Pacific. Well, early if you're on the West Coast. Still not early if you're on the East Coast, but it's a little more reasonable because it's 6:30 showtime. I'm so excited to see a show outside. I got to say, the weather is looking like it's going to be beautiful. You know, the venue is like grassy field next to a river. It's going to be lovely. And I've heard that tomorrow is the first show of the tour where the band will have their PA set up and Getty will have the A rig. You know, the San Francisco is the B light rig because it's smaller. We're not going to be able to see much of the light rig tomorrow because it's not going to be dark until the encore. But it's going to be cool to see what what the A rig looks like.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, and I mean, Getty's lights already looked awesome. So yeah, I mean, and that's the B team essentially, or the B rig. That's ridiculous. Like, I'm convinced he has a computer chip in his brain.
Yes,
something like that. Yeah, it was blowing me away last night. Well, with that, we're gonna wrap up here. Everybody, safe travels if you're heading to Bend. We'll see you there tomorrow.
Can I say one thing before you do?
Yes.
I want to do a plug for what is it now?
Storm on the road. But I think we're renaming it to Storm Tracker.
Storm Tracker.
Yes. Yeah. If you guys
that messes up with my companion thing. Oh man.
We'll find out another way for you to be annoyed with me. Don't worry. Well, yeah. If you guys didn't see, I'm doing a new social media series with Nugs. You know, it's going up on their socials the day after every show that I'm going to. I'm kind of doing on the street little quick interviews before doors. So stay tuned. Yesterday's episode will be up within the next few hours, I believe. But yeah, I'll be doing it at every stop that I'm doing this tour, which is most of the tour. So stay tuned for that. It's a lot of fun.
Also, check out our latest episode with Karina really quickly. We launched it right before Gonzo, and everybody was kind of like busy and traveling, but go listen to it. It is such a fun episode. If you enjoyed last night's show whatsoever, you like the spontaneity of it, Karina is a great listen.
That is the Fen Flock.
Yes.
Sorry.
Don't forget to say the name of the podcast. And another note on Storm Tracker, Neil will be filming the Guilford, New Hampshire episode, and he's so excited about it.
Okay, well now you're making. I wasn't going to announce it on this particular podcast, but I will have a companion show for Ryan's. What are we calling it now? Storm on the Road. But my companion show is going to be me alongside Ryan as we do the last part of this tour, which is called Storm on My Nerves. And I'm just going to keep track of all the shit that Ryan does that annoys me, including making me film him for Storm on the Road. So
and then
check out my Instagram for that.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
I can't wait for that.
Slaps.
Anyway, there will be slaps. Garrett already did a design. We're ready. But okay, we're going to wrap up here. Everybody, we'll see you in Bend tomorrow. We'll be back on Saturday afternoon to recap that show while we're on the drive to Spokane. Very, very excited for more Goose. Tour is just getting started. So we will see you on Saturday afternoon. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Thanks for tuning in.